in Eli.
Do you think they were surprised that they weren't in the final two? It seems like with Arch.
Another good question. I don't know. I mean, at a certain point when they did get the commitment a few weeks before Arch
Mm.
committed to Texas, I think at that point that they wouldn't be accepting commitments if they thought that that was still a real possibility
Mm.
from such a high profile quarterback.
What do you find the most interesting thing about covering Nick Saban?
Well, I mean, there's a lot. I just the character study of trying to understand who Nick Saban is, what makes him tick, what he's all about. I think it's kind of always been an interesting thing. I've covered him since 2009, and it's just kind of I've just kind of seen some evolution from him over the years, and some things that are exactly the same as they were when I got here, and people who covered him in the past say that some things are exactly the same. So there's some evolution to him. He's adapted to some of the modern game where people weren't sure if he was ready to transition to up tempo offenses, and he answered that question. But just his mindset, what makes him tick. Trying to people always ask me what's Nick Saban like, and it's a hard question to answer because it's complicated. He's complicated. He's not like most of us. What motivates him, what makes him tick, is just different from the average person.
Do you feel like he's always real with you?
Is what?
Do you feel like he's always real with you? And because he seems more media friendly than you would expect. Like he seems to be in that more media friendly than like a Kirby or somebody.
I guess it depends.
Mm-hmm.
There are just different ways of looking at it. In some ways, there's more than what meets the eye sometimes, and there's more than what's seen on TV.
Mm.
Um,
Well, what do you think the biggest thing they get wrong about Saban? Like national media, folks who are not plugged into Tuscaloosa and what goes on day to day with Saban. What do you think they get wrong about him?
hmm. um, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if people necessarily get things wrong. It's that there it might be exaggerations, things that there aren't too many things where here that it's like, oh, that's absolutely not what he's like, because he can be.
Mm.
There's a difference from what you see on TV and what you see when cameras go off
Mm.
in a number of ways. So, I mean, what's right and what's wrong, I think it's sometimes there's some gray area that's hard to really put your finger on and say this is right, this is absolutely wrong. It just there's more to it, and it's hard to I have to really think deeper on that, on exactly how to describe it. But it's complicated. It's not as always as straightforward as it might seem.
What do you think he does after he retires? Do you have a sense of that at all?
No, I mean that's the question that's people pondered for years, and no one's really sure. I don't really. I think no one knows but him, in a certain way, because he's modeled his career. He's kind of had certain people he's had as heroes or people that he looked up to, and there are certain generations of coaches who aren't really sure how to handle retirement. I mean, you look at Bear Bryant; he died a month after his final game. Joe Paterno was spooked out by the way Bear Bryant died right after he retired, and he ended up following a very similar timeline. So I think there's certain coaches that aren't really sure what to do if they don't have football. And he's always said that he's always been a part of a team, and he doesn't know what he would do without being part of a team. So if he were to
Do you think he'll
hang it
keep
up,
going for a while longer? You think he's not even close to being done? It seems like.
it's so hard to say because going back to he thinks so much differently. What makes him tick is so much different from so many of us. It's hard to put our mindset and how we would handle things into what and translate that into his brain, because it just kind of operates differently from a lot of us. I think that if he were to retire with useful years ahead of him, that he would do something that would be, quote unquote, part of a team, whether it's broadcasting or something where he wouldn't be. I can't see him just going and sitting on the dock and staring at the lake in Georgia. I think he's going to be part of something, as far as he can, as much as he can in his productive years.
Interesting. Um, in terms of the Tennessee game last year, that was a lot of fun, and I want to get your perspective, like me being a Tennessee guy, and that game was a lot of fun, a lot of back and forth. The infamous Josh Gibbs looking the wrong way, and so Tillman's already way past him for a big game, but it seems like they kind of tripped up Alabama on the road, and they get Tennessee or they get Alabama at home. There's a potential scenario, very realistic one, I think, as long as the 40 games goes a certain way, but we'll have to see. They're both 5-0 coming into that game. Like, did you see something in that game last year and with the way that Tennessee plays and Heupel plays that makes you wonder if that's a team to watch, kind of like what Hugh Freeze did to Saban and Gus Malzahn some years? Do you see that as one where like folks are just might want to keep an eye on that game this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely think that I saw something different from Tennessee this past year, as opposed to previous years. I covered the team since 2009. Tennessee's come close a few times, but haven't really. Maybe 2009 was the big